Welcome to the Disruptive Innovation Festival. This is a festival where we ask the question, what if we could redesign every day? I'm joined today by Tugce and Dilek. Tugce is a design curator and independent researcher who founded Design Atlas, and Dilek is editor on design publications. Tugce will talk us through an introduction and inform us on their view of disruptive design, where Dilek will tell us through 5 topics and ideas on creative profiles, and we'll end that with cases right there from Istanbul. I want to hand over the microphone to Istanbul right now. Welcome, Tugce and Dilek.
Hi, hello everyone.
Hello everyone.
Yeah, thanks for introduction. We are live streaming from Studio X Istanbul today with the live audience. It's a pleasure for us to be a part of Disruptive Innovation Festival. My name is Tugce Karatas. I'm a design curator and independent researcher and lately co-founder of Design Atlas. Design Atlas is the new age community which aims to create project-based collaborations with designers from Turkey. And I'm with Dilek Öztürk at the moment here. She's editor-in-chief in design publication in-between.online. And she's also a lecturer in Istanbul Bilgi University on design writing and human and environment. Without further ado, I would like to thank Dilek to be with us today. And to be honest, we were discussing this topic quite a lot with Dilek lately. And it's a nice opportunity for us to bring this topic to Turkish design scene and also share the stories of Dilek's kind of like curated stories from Istanbul.
Yeah.
So if you can little bit, talk about your, actually I introduced you, but I also think that your profession is quite disruptive as well. So you're editor, you are publishing a magazine, actually Design Unlimited, twice in a year. Yeah. So I think the way you did your profession,
or
it says live, but
maybe we can just
click one more time. We are live, but
okay, great. Okay. First of all, thank you very much, Tugce, for inviting me for the design, this Disruptive Innovation Festival, and thank you to JFI for organizing this great event, which is live streamed all around the world. I am Dilek, as you mentioned. I'm an editor, but I mostly like introduce myself as a design editor and academic, but nowadays, being an editor and being a publisher, the ways have changed how we define what is an editor and what an editor does. It's completely changed. And from my point of view today, this is, I think, why I'm here, disrupting the conventional ways, the traditional ways of publishing about architecture, design, and creative industries. So I'm a design editor, and like twice a year, I publish Design Unlimited, which is an international design magazine published as a part of Art Unlimited magazine. And I'm the co-founder and editor-in-chief of the design publication in-between.online. So I was always in this very traditional and conventional printed publication sector as an editor, and I really wanted to disrupt the ways of publishing, because I think a publisher should also be a missioner, should also have responsibilities to gather people together, to open new topics, as well as act like a ground, create a common ground so that the creatives can meet with potential clients, or the creative profiles can meet
like
the
an
sector,
agency,
like being an agent,
or like a mediator, maybe.
Mediator, agent. The definition is not important. I think the most important thing is how you bridge the gap between the creative industries and people and creative sectors and designers as well. So this is why I feel like more like an agent, more like someone to bridging the creative sector with designers, makers, artists, and like generating grants for them to collaborate. So I really feel a big responsibility and mission to do so. So this is how I disrupt being a publisher. I don't publish documentation. I don't publish information. I try to publish information, which I'm going to explain later. I have a presentation, and we try to create content, and this content, is not just something that tells people what's happening in the world. It's more like a created content that we somehow analyze and create the content from all of the design events or people that we are talking, all the travels that we are doing, and all the journey we have been through. And we believe in not documenting something but creating a content. And this is, I think, the way of content is the king, of course, but how the ways of publishing should change and go into in another way. Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, you will be just continuing interviewing people, or like publishing some press bulletins that comes into your mailbox. So this should really like something that I don't want to do and will not do.
Okay.
Thank you.
So disruption is relatively new term for Turkish design scene as well. So I wonder, what is your point of view and why design scene need disruption? You mentioned a little bit, but I actually wonder your vision behind the idea of disruptive, because so it started with the innovation and mostly late 90s, Clay Christensen mentioned disruptive innovation. And then I think it was 5 years ago, it was boomed. And now we are using disruptive design and disruptive methods of design thinking as well. So it's, how do you relate with the design scene?
I think we will be talking about it a lot, especially nowadays. But disruption is has a quite positive and productive meaning to me, because it's not just about doing something better. It is not about doing something better. It's about doing something differently and change your perspective. If you do something differently, then you will definitely create a change. If you keep doing what you're doing, then you will get what you got. But if you really change the ways that you're doing, if you do it differently, then you're really going to make a change. So this is a breaking point, I think, for me in the design scene. And it's about doing things differently and opening new topics, and also while you're doing that, inviting people and even open more new discussions. This is for me how disruption is taking place in the design scene. And I mean, there are a lot of topics that we can talk about, but I kind of categorized my view of disruption in 5 different categories. And here I'm going to
bear with me for a second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tugce is dealing with the presentation.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell you how I'm going to talk about disruption. So I categorized I prepared 5 topics, and in these 5 topics, I'm going to tell you about ideas, profiles, and ways of making related with these 5 topics. So that this is how my editorial background forced me to categorize, to relate with things, people, and ideas. So this is what I do actually. I mean, maybe this is also a magazine.
Yeah.
So we can start with the first topic is not shaking gently. If you shake something gently, then you will have a gently shake juice. Okay, this is fine, then you can drink it. But if you don't not shake anything gently, then you will create a change. So let's look at some ideas and profiles who are not shaking gently, who are doing things differently, who are creating impact, not just in the design scene. I'm mostly talking about social impact, and who are creating values, who are changing the conventional, and also inviting people to interact. So I have some also like profiles and ideas here that I can show to you. And I must also mention that when I was talking about the mission of the publisher has changed. Mission, the publisher became a curator, became a ground, a platform that merges different ideas and different sectors together. So this is why in our publication in-between.online that I established with my partner here, Bilgi and Coşkun, we believe in the created content, and also we believe in disrupting the conventional ways of publishing by representing that people we already feature. Like, we become friends with them first. We try to understand their ways of making and their design. We follow them for years. Actually, we stalk them. And then we go and meet with them. Then we talk, we become friends. And then they are always in our radar, so that we can hook them up with some other companies and some other projects that we are already doing and we will be doing in the future. So this is our point of view, become an editor, being a publisher. Why not? Because in our publication, we try to open this representation area so that the emerging designers can take place in this publication as a gallery, so that, I mean, this is the profile that we are representing. So Begüm Cana Özgür, she's also here. Hi Begüm. Cana, I was always calling you Cana, but maybe with a little bit of excitement. You are Begüm today. Thank you very much for coming. So we were following Cana for like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. Even when I was working with Design Foundation Istanbul with Barış, he's also here. And she's like one of the designers that we represent, we can say it, I think we featured before. Cana is, her background is in architecture faculty in interior design, and then now she's a product designer, a textile designer, mostly working on weaving sector. I think Cana's profile is quite disruptive. If you think of weaving in Turkey's context, because weaving is something very traditional, like the history, the background is really like strong in Turkey, and also the patterns are really strong, as well as the background, as well as the history. So there are some like, as we can call them, molds, the patterns, very well-known patterns in the Turkish or Ottoman or very late Mesopotamian culture history. There are some molds that you cannot really change them, like molds, patterns as molds. But what Cana is doing, Cana is also working with the weaving artist, textile people living in the Konya, Aksaray, and different cities, Denizli in Anatolia. What she's doing, she's disrupting the traditional pattern of Turkish weaving sector, and she's creating a new pattern, and she's going to the weaving people who have really big like experience in the sector, and she's teaching them how to redo, how to redesign this specific rug, for example, the color, the pattern, and all the feeling. So this is a quite disruptive idea and ways of making, because when it comes to really traditional ways of making, especially if we are talking about Turkey, then there is a big risk of being quite authentic and oriental. But this is something putting this very traditional ways of making into the contemporary scene by disrupting it. And also meeting with the traditional people, manufacturers, artisans, craftsmen, and teaching them how to disrupt it. So this is where the change starts, I think. So what I was trying to tell, that disruption is not about making things better, it's about making things differently and creating a change. I think this is a magnificent example. And also these are the other results of Cana's disruptive ways of making, and how she puts this into the textile design, product design. I mean, it can turn out to anything, even furniture, even, you know, a site-specific installation, even an edited design, a unique design as well. Collectible design, how they call it nowadays. And now I am skipping to the fashion design. Emre Aktuna, she's actually an industrial designer from Bilkent University, I think. She's quite young, and now she's a fashion designer, and she has a design studio named Outcast People. She didn't call herself as Emre Aktuna Design or Emre Aktuna Fashion, blah, blah, but Outcast People has a manifest and stands for something, stands for reflecting the urban culture, reflecting the underground culture in Istanbul. It's such a diverse and various scenes she can talk about. So for an industrial product designer, having reference from the underground culture of Istanbul and writing a manifest and designing collections in a very fast-growing, rapidly growing, insane fashion sector is something, to me, quite disruptive. And this is how she calls herself, I stand for something. I have a manifest to tell. I'm a designer. I don't do it by product. I do it by fashion. Very, very daily thing. And this is how she created her own collections based on reflecting the underground culture of Istanbul. It's quite, by the way, both ready to wear, male and female, but most of her collections, most of her outfits, her products are unisex. Like, also, her manifest stands for the identity in fashion, the gender issues. So, like, some
very timely.
Yeah, very, very timely, definitely. So she's also disrupting her own sector. Okay, I'm going from there. And Öykü, Öykü is it? Actually, I can define her as a fashion entrepreneur. Her background is coming from the business. She went to school in Sorbonne, and then she did her master's degree in USA in Berkeley. And this is a pure like entrepreneurship example, incomplete. Is a fashion line. It can look like a normal like fashion collection, but it is the opposite actually. Öykü is working with disadvantaged children, and especially like Syrian refugees or some disadvantaged children living in the southeastern part of Anatolia. What she's doing is she's using the participatory design process, but all of the patterns that you are seeing in this accessories or in this clothes, all the patterns are being made by these children by completing their stories. There are some like fairy tales that Öykü finds in these specific regions and make workshops with children, and children draw their story, how the story ends. So then she collects all the patterns, and she, of course, like she has a team, and they somehow interpret their ideas, their tales, their stories, the children's stories into patterns. And also the money that she earns from the selling these products, a part of the money is going to these children. So in the fashion sector, it's quite disruptive. And also in a sector that, that really, really forces you, encourages you to produce something new, an idea and manifest, twice a year isn't really, really like not sensible to me, but she believes in creating a collection and then release it. It can be once a year as well, or biannual, or once in 3 years. So this way of making, and also as a profile, as a fashion entrepreneur, I think what she's doing is quite disruptive in, again, Turkish textile and fashion contexts. An individual becomes platform. Okay, it's really hard to disrupt the designers being designer, because also the very, very like traditional way of being a designer has changed. People collaborate a lot. They want to collaborate with artists with different disciplines, transdisciplinary, they want to do transdisciplinary works. Okay, but at the same time, the designer's name are not in the menu anymore. Designer is not in the menu like as the name, but they want to create a platform. They want to be a part of something that they created. So there are some initiatives, some like design groups, some design collectives who are really triggering this conversation of doing something together, being a part of something that they already created, and just skip their names and create a platform, a common ground. This is really important. And they invite people who they believe in. And so this even creates the most strongest organic effect in the, not just the design scene, and also in the art scene, also in the public, in the civil society. So creating this impact is really important. Okay,
I have a question.
Okay.
So I
need a break.
So like these many examples, we can say that like design for the social change. Do you think disruptive design is a tool for social change? Do you believe that?
Or we can put it this way, design is a tool to make the social change, but if you think in a disruptive way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it can be design, it can be art, it can be any kind of creative industry, of course, can make a social impact. And when you look at architectural or design biennales, and most of the topics are like, for example, the next London Design Biennale's topic just released, emotional state of mind. And before that, it was about utopias. So we are more emotional in the biennales. And when we see the works of what is every country's utopia in the last London Design Biennale, all the works was amazing. For a third world country, clean water is an utopia. So what is going to happen in the emotional state of mind? Of course, design can create a social, a vital impact. And when we see the other architectural biennales, especially the Venice Biennale, very David Chipperfield, Alejandro Aravena, or really really well-known architects that we already know, making conceptual projects for the third world countries for providing clean water, sanitation, or like creating spontaneous survival kits areas, how to make housing in 5 steps, blah blah things. But they're all conceptual and staying in the exhibition area. But
actually, there are some outcomes about it. About United Nations released 17 sustainable development goals.
Definitely. But this is a late announcement from my point of view. It could have been done many years, maybe centuries ago. Yeah. This is my point of view.
It's kind of like creating experiences that actually evoke the positive change. It is not the change itself,
definitely.
But kind of
the thing is that, for example, in fashion design, if you create a line one time in 2 years, then this means, you really create a disruption in the sector, and you have a standing point, and it brings change. And also in Öykü's example, and in some other, like hundreds of examples, also integrating disadvantages people, that's part of the civil society, into design process or also the production process. This make change. For example, there was a Portuguese social design studio. I really forgot their name, but they have an amazing project. They were using they were recycling the milk bottles, and they were making products with them, like stationeries, very simple daily products. And the production process, they work with women who are in jail, and these women were making all the stationery stitches, all the cleaning, all the finishing touches, and all these products were being produced in the jail. This is disruption. This is social impact. It makes a change.
I think we also have this. So when you say sustainability, there is actually, maybe it's better to explain to global community that there's actually a term related to sürdürülebilirlik in sustainability, but it's like the terms like disruptive or inclusive or immersive, we don't have exact word for that, so it's a little bit more tricky to, you know, like to explain the community. So it's maybe that's the reason it's a little bit hard to understand people and get there, the same as participatory. So when we say participatory, everybody has different idea.
Yeah, of course.
So it's kind of also important to create literature around it and make people aware of the what is
actually,
it actually.
It is our also mission as editors and as agents to spread the word, to spread these examples, to create like I mean, online is everything. Okay, I am in love with this printed materials. It's something else, but an online publication stands still, and if you really make this online publication a sustainable one, then it's alive and it really gives a lot of information to the society, what's going on in the world. But at the same time, we can further locate this discussion into an online platform. This is also something valuable. Like creating online archive is something that we are missing here in Turkey. There are a lot of valuable design products or design firms that they used to have. If you look at the Turkish design history, we have a lot of amazing designers and pieces and some tiles, patterns, know-how, amazing history, but we really want to see it in an online place as archives. This is how we can learn, this is how we can teach, and this is how we can have references to really create the touch. What is our touch? I mean, if you talk about Istanbul or Turkey, of course, design doesn't come to my mind just like that, but other things come. But we have a lot of references that we can really spread the word of the Turkish or the Istanbul design touch. This is important, I think, and this is why the online publications, the online platforms should create this kind of documentation areas, archives, as well as dynamic content that involves different designers, makers, artists, sectors, and firms together. So this is also something that I would like to disrupt about the ways of publication.
Yeah, I think that's important. And also you mentioned the power of collaboration.
Definitely.
The examples you are showing to us is, another one is Spotlight, which we will come at the end.
Actually, I would like to skip Bilgi.
Okay.
She's also a really powerful, emerging creative profile. She's a product designer, graduated from Yeditepe University, and then she had her master's degree in Royal Academy in London. And in London, I mean, she could have come to Turkey and just opened her own design studio by her name. So this is something really doable. She has an amazing background, fluent English, but she's one of the co-founders of Form and Seek initiative. So this is again something disruptive, because we are not talking about design profiles or designers' names anymore. Even Tom Dixon is not using his name anymore, but people are gathering together, creating a platform, and everybody, has a different feedback from each other. They create value together and they give value. I mean, this is a value exchange platform, and I think I'm really excited seeing these kind of things, how designers come together, share an idea, and expose an idea together. Creating this synergy is really, really valuable. And if I see this, Turkish lady coming from London and a co-founder of Form and Seek doing amazing exhibitions in London Design Festival, Milan Design Week, lastly in Eindhoven Design Week, and even they were exhibited in Frame Magazine's booth. So this is something quite valuable. It's disruptive, just not your name, not releasing your name, but releasing an initiative. This is also, these glass ones are one of her designs. So this topic is also quite disruptive to me. You can just open and I can continue. From professional to amateur, from subject to content. So the gap between the professional and the amateur has gone. We have a lot of things to learn from children, of course, from young people, from newly graduates, from students. We have a lot of things to learn from the amateurs, and this is how we really believe in the democratization of media production and also design. From subject to content is also related to that. I will mostly speak about, disrupting the design publication scene. Also, we believe in the content generated by the subject of the content. So in that sense, the editor, becomes a creator, becomes an operator, just leaving the area for the subject of the content to lead the conversation, to trigger the conversation, to open new topics. This is out of control, but at the same time, this is curated. So I would like to talk about one of our projects that we started last year. It's named Spotlight. When we were meeting with the team, we were just talking about how can we dive into the young and emerging design scene. How can we reach these people? Okay, there were some people that we were already following, like Barış and Jana here. But at the same time, I am 35, Bilgi is 35. And how to interact, how to meet with people who are in their 20s and 25s. Because, okay, we have just, 10 years difference of age, but sometimes it can be really hard to even communicate with my students in the university. But what could be the easiest way? Okay, then maybe these people can create their own platform, their own publication, their own channel of interaction. So Spotlight, so let's each Friday, let's spotlight a young creative profile. And starting with, again, Jana here. You really influenced us, by the way.
By all the time young people.
The thing is,
adaptiveness?
we already know established design scene in Turkey. We already work with most of them. We already made projects with them, and most of them are our teachers, our mentors, our boss, etc. We already know them, and they are doing great. But we really believe in this disruptive, emerging young designer scene in Turkey, and we would like to feature it, and we would like to create a platform just to feature this emerging scene. And the best way is to let them do it. I'm not doing it as an editor. So we ask, it's a 5-minute video series project, and the aim is bringing young and emerging creative talents. And each Friday, starting with Jana, we ask her to video record her Friday as a designer with her cell phone. It can be any type of cell phone, but unfortunately, everybody has an iPhone. I really wanted to have a really, really dummy phone. So from the front camera or the back camera, we asked this designer to shoot like a 5-minute video of her or his Friday, telling her ways of making, who she is or he's inspired from, and especially we kindly asked her to do it in her working environment, in her neighborhood. And then this very intimate scenes, they're just shooting themselves with this cell phone and then showing their intimate working areas, working environments. And they, at the end of the video, they suggest next week's spotlight. So
they decide the content.
They decide the content.
Love it. Yeah.
And then we skipped out.
Yeah,
for sure. So this is something the really content making has changed, and we really this was the only way for us to dive into this young and emerging designers in their 20s group. So they created their own spotlight community. And we did it, you know, just sending emails, and they sent us back their videos, and they suggested the next week's spotlight, and this is how a spontaneous network platform has been generated. And speaking of spontaneous network platform, and about disrupting the design publication scene, in between we call it not a design publication, but a spontaneous network of creative cities, people and things around design, because it's all about creating these networking platforms and triggering the collaborations. It's really important. I am speaking too much.
No, I love it. I just want to ask about this. So you mentioned that like spotlight. The way that I asked the question was a little bit tricky, because I wanted to ask why young designers, because I also know that as a young designer researcher that we don't have so much opportunity to show our work in Istanbul or in Turkish design scene. So I think the way you did it in Spotlight is quite valuable for me as well, to understand the emerging talents. And actually it's also important to you know, like listen their stories from, you know, coming from their words. And because I think it's important as a curator as well. I think that like the best way to explain a designer is from their work, their words. So I think it's quite important in that sense.
I mean, to break the conventional ways of making in design, you need to really reach these emerging people, young people, because we are really talking about the different generation. And this different generation is going to be shaping the future's design scene. So we should know more about them.
I'm just gonna stick on Buckminster Fuller. I can love him, and it's just the best way to predict future is to design it. So we are kind of designing
the best
future.
way to predict the future is maybe disrupt it.
Another
design it. Why not?
We have a question actually. So it's also related with my next question. So so all the example that you show, they wonder that like how is related with the social change, because basically Dilek is, should I say it? So it's kind of like, if you don't want to name it, you didn't launch it at the moment, so it's just a trailer of the project. But could you please tell us about your project in Harran?
Okay. Thank you for asking this. We haven't realized this project, but about the social impact, it was just one example that I showed, incomplete example that really involving these Syrian refugee children to design a pattern, to design something on textile as a part of a fairy tale or a story. So this is also something quite productive, quite positive, to change this child's life and also to disrupt the traditional ways of design, especially in fashion. So this was one example of social impact. And also most of the designers that I represented here are also in our project in Harran, which is in the southeastern part in Turkey. And now we are generating a design collection based on the references of Mesopotamia culture. Also, I would like to, underline to creating this design touch in Turkey, you really need a contemporary point of view. These young designers that we have chosen just for this, to be able to take these Mesopotamian cultural references into the global world, in the global scale, in a contemporary way, interpreting in a contemporary way. There is always a risk of being oriental, especially in our geography. So this is social, and what is the social impact part of this project is that all of the productions will are being made in this region by women who are already living in Harran, Urfa, or coming from Syria, living in the refugee camps in Urfa. So there are 6 different workshop areas, like textile, felt, ceramic, and some other ateliers, some other workshops, and all the productions are taking place in there. So the production, all the production of this project will be done by these women. So this is quite a social impact, because these people are just coming this workshop area just to forget what they have lived, just to forget their traumas, and they become productive. They really search for a meaning in their life. They become a part of something. So this is quite valuable. And this is a pure social impact example.
Another question is, it's a tough one though.
Okay.
Yeah, when do you actually understand the good disruption you mentioned? What is the disruption? What makes disruption successful for you?
I think it's, I cannot say good, but good is really a relative concept. Disruption for me is, as I mentioned in the beginning of my speech, doing things differently to create a change, to trigger a multidisciplinary, a participatory conversation, also involving people. So this is for me a successful disruption. And successful disruption can be also read in the examples that I'm giving, like disrupting the rapidly growing fashion sector by writing a manifest and not producing a lot of collections, and also disrupting a really traditional textile ways of making by creating the pattern in the digital world, and disrupting the molds and creating something new. And from the idea-wise as well, to be able to create a successful disruption example, you always need to invite people and ask people to be a part of it, so that this disruption will involve in something. Okay, you can do something differently, but you cannot always disrupt. This is why you have to create these platforms, open it, publish it, document it, create an archive so that people would participate, and also, interpret your idea. Why not? This is something I believe.
Yeah, I think you have to explain a little bit about the risk of being Oriental. The global audience, they don't.
Okay, the thing is, all the products, the patterns, all the crafts that have been produced in this geography, most of the time, there's a risk of being defined as Oriental. Oriental in terms of organic shapes, flower shapes, patterns, all the references from Ottoman time, and from the, even go to the 5,000 years ago, people were believing in stars and moons in Mesopotamia, for example. So this kind of references can be really transformed, can be really interpreted into today's consuming habits. So this is something important. Also, there could be some really unique designs which are still Oriental. Oriental here is not a bad or negative word, by the way. It's just something that we would like to generate in this project, especially in Harran, to be able to really answer the needs of today's society. But by giving the reference of people who were living 5,000 years ago, their ways of making, their ways of believing, like worshipping anything.
To wrap up, actually, I would like to ask you guys if you have any questions. Anyone? Okay, one last question coming from me.
Okay.
Yeah, since this year's festival theme is redesigning. Yeah, hi. One last question.
So are we running out of time, by the way?
No, I think it's perfect to do one more last question.
Okay.
To wrap it all up, yes.
Okay, my last question is related to the team. If you could redesign something in the world immediately, what would it be?
It's so sudden.
Yeah.
I don't know. Really. So
Something,
silly.
anything.
Okay, it's very silly. Birkenstock.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would redesign these products for sure. But I don't know, it just came to my mind at the moment.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we
Yes, thank you there. I really much enjoyed all this. Oh,
Thank
sorry. Things going on. I really much enjoyed your stories, local stories from Istanbul, and your view of disruption as being a change in perspectives. Really nice to hear about that. Thank you, and thank you for our audience today. I want to tell a bit more about our sessions coming up. In an hour, we have a session coming up from Safia Qureshi, who's going to talk us through how her new definitions for food packaging are involving circular economy. And one that I'm myself am looking forward to very much is one of our headliners tomorrow at 5 p.m. It's Will Automation Spell the End of Education as We Know It? Thanks again, Tugce Dilek, calling in from Istanbul. And bye to everyone.